Okay, I'm talking here with Mr. Comic Book, Mr. Magazine, Mr. What else can I say? He's
Mr. Mad.
Mr. Mad. He's a legend. The EC Comics guy right here, Al Feldstein.
Yeah, thanks. Hi.
Man, I'm telling you, everybody grew up reading this guy's material. Not only is he a great writer of all those stories from the EC Comics, but he was also an artist for many of the covers, many of the Tales from the Crypt comic covers. What got you started?
Well, thank you very much. Mad, of course, was a kind of a beef bourguignon of talented artists and writers. I did very little artwork for Mad. There were funnier artists better than me. I was straight. As a matter of fact, it's interesting, when I first took over Mad, when Harvey left to do Trump, thank God, I looked up all my EC artists that I'd like to rehire because we'd all been let go. And I mean, I couldn't use Graham Engels in Mad. He wasn't funny.
And Bill Elder only lasted like a few issues, didn't he?
Bill Elder went with Harvey to Trump, to Hefner. And so when Harvey left, I had to get a whole new staff, whole new artists and writers. I wrote most of the early issues that I was editing with Jerry DeFuscio, and then we started to get writers like Frank Jacobs.
Nick Meglin.
Nick Meglin, yeah. Well, he wasn't a writer. He was supposed to find me writers through the mail, and he did. I mean, we got Larry Siegel and Stan Hart and Arnie Kogan, guys that went off to Hollywood after a while.
The usual gang of idiots.
Yeah, but I mean, they went off and the doors opened for them. You guys write for Mad, come on in. And they got Emmys for like writing for Carol Burnett and writing for Bob Newhart and Johnny Carson. You know, and whenever I call them and I said, I'd like you to do a takeoff of Poseidon Adventure, they would do it. They would do it at our fees, even though they were making a big money in Hollywood.
I've got that issue. You called it the Upside Down Adventure.
Yeah,
I've got that issue. Yeah.
Well, you know, that issue was our highest seller, and it was very interesting because Alfred was on every cover except that one.
Really?
His sneakers were on that one. And everybody knew it was him. His sneakers. They were sticking up through a life preserver.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question for you. Back in, I think it was 1975, I think Mad was the first magazine to have this on it. Remember that?
Yeah.
Now, how much flack did you get for that?
Well, we got banned in a couple of places because some women, and I didn't realize that this was very sensitive to ladies. I thought it meant, you know, up yours was a flick off. I didn't know that it had a sexual connotation. Anyway, they bombarded Whip. I think we were thrown out of Walgreens or something in a couple of other places. You know, I thought it was a funny thing to say number one.
I mean, that was
number one humor magazine, or I forget what.
The number one magazine.
Yeah, right, number one magazine.
I mean, I don't think you realized it, from what you just told me, that you realized it at the time, but that was a pretty groundbreaking cover. I mean, it opened the floodgates.
Oh, well, we did groundbreak a lot of stuff without knowing it. I mean, after all, Mad became the birthplace and the old EC Comics of the underground comics. And all the guys were doing the really wild stuff, sexy stuff that we couldn't do because we had, you know, perusal.
Is Jack Davis still around?
Yes, he's still living in Georgia. He came to, I met him after 40 years, after I left Mad, which was in 84. I met him in 2002, the 50th anniversary of Mad. He came to San Diego to the convention. And he's still the same. He's still got that drawling southern accent. But, you know, Jack went through a very unhappy period because he was living in the suburbs of New York, doing very well, playing golf. You know, I'd give him a 10-day deadline for a story, and he'd go to work on it the last 3 days because he was very fast. And he'd play golf the other 7 days. But anyway, when when the poop hit the fan.
You can say, he'll just edit it.
And no, I don't want it edited.
Oh, okay.
And the poop hit the fan, and comic books came under fire as being causing juvenile delinquency.
That was ridiculous.
Which was so much bullpoop.
Frederick Wortham, right? That guy.
Frederick Wortham, yeah. I mean, you know, and they dredged up all this terrible stuff that we did. Never once just give me any credit for the good stuff we did, like racial prejudice, religious tolerance, and all kinds of stories.
Yeah, that one story about the black astronaut. Remember?
Yeah,
that was when you got.
We couldn't even get that through the code. Bill quit after that, and that's when we all got fired. But anyway, Jack, when they found out that he was the guy that had done all these stories that were now in front of the cover committee, you know, the baseball story and wrestling, he wanted to deny that he ever did this stuff. He really was ashamed. And
Did you have to get up in front of the committee?
I was subpoenaed privately, and I was against Bill doing what he did, which was to demand to be heard on TV. I said, that was idiotic. That was like walking into the lion's den, you know.
I've seen that clip.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his presentation was very good. I loved it. I mean, you know, he said that, first of all, that parents should supervise their kids, and if they don't want them to read a horror novel, which he didn't believe had any real effect on anybody, just tell a kid not to buy it. That's all.
Exactly.
And in explaining the fun of a horror story to a guy like Frederick Wortham was like explaining the sublimation of sex to a frigid old maid. That got him. That turned the senator's ears red.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, for everybody who collects and still has some of the old Mads, what were some of the, like on the back cover, they had the phony ads, the funny ads. No, the outside. Yeah, not the Al Jaffe, but the outside.
Phony ads. I wrote most of them.
Yeah, and now which were some of the ones where people can see you? Because you were in some of those.
Oh, I was?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. Oh, well, they once had a cigarette. I think it was Tarleton. Us Tarleton smokers would rather
Switch than fight or something like that?
Fight than switch. Fight than switch.
You got a black eye.
And I turned it into we would rather fight than quit. Us Tarleton manufacturers. And I had a black eye, and I was smoking $100 bill.
Yep.
Yeah. I posed for that. I posed for the Chesterfield ad. I posed for a lot of ads. I posed for the whiskey ad. I was seeing pink elephants that flocked through over my head for a Canadian club. I was clubbed.
Who was the guy dressed up as the ugly girl on the elevator? You saw
that was the blondes have more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had him chasing this gorgeous blonde with hardness girl. She had a great finger, straight ass, and great behind. And when she turned around, it was Frank Jacobs in his fake wig.
Okay.
Yeah, because Frank had a very...
I know that. He's got his lips pursed, you know. It's just,
yeah,
oh,
he
man.
had a kind of a interesting face.
Well, what do you think of the new Mads?
Well,
Are you involved? Have you involved much with those at all?
No, I'm not involved with anything. I didn't even get a dime for the HBO Tales from the Crypt stories that were adopted. You know, all the movies.
Damn. Now, Gaines is the state.
They own all that. Yeah. However, I don't know whether you guys are familiar with the copyright laws, but for example, the families of Siegel and Schuster have just gotten back copyrights.
For Superman.
Yeah, because there is a part of the new copyright extension law that's called the termination of transfer of copyright. Because the original stuff that we signed away, we only signed away for 56 years. We didn't sign it away for the extra years that Sonny Bono passed this bill about for his friends in the music business. And so anybody that if it wasn't a work for hire, and a work for hire has been confused. A work for hire is when you sat in a studio under somebody's roof and got a salary and got withholding and got compensation taken out and all that. That was work for hire. You were working on a salary, taking on a job. But everybody that worked for EC were freelance contractors. And Bill had a big red stamp on the back of his checks that said, you know, I got the copyright and I can do what I want with it. And we were all starving, so we signed it. And we signed away the rights. But I am now going after those rights because after 56 years I can reclaim them under this little glitch in the Sonny Bono extension of the copyright law. It's called the termination of transfer. And that's what the Super Chip crowd did. That's what Bob Kane used, what he settled, and what Joe Simon is now going to use for Captain America.
Can't you get anything from the Tales from the Crypt, since they list you as writer and the credits of that show?
No, they did not.
I've seen it. I've got all the episodes on DVD, and they have listed your name on some of those. It's written by, or maybe
Are you sure? Take a look at it again.
Okay, I will.
And if they are, I would like to see it, because when the first one was coming on the air and Bill told me about it, I got a release from Joe Silver, Gil Adler Woodvale, producing the show, signing the right that I gave him the right to reproduce my story in HBO. But there was this paragraph which said that I was also would compensate them for any liability problems, like if the story was stolen or whatever. And Bill, if you remember the old and that's how we plotted, Bill used to read all these stories and give me the ideas of the stories, and I would change them and write them. And so we used what was called springboards. And I didn't know where the hell these stories came from, but Bill did. And so I called him up and I said, I can't sign that. You own these stories. You have the rights to them. I have the rights to them. Why should I take the liability? I don't know who. Well, he says, oh, just crossed it out. So I crossed it out and I sent it in, and the first show was about the guy with the cat at 9 lives, the cat that sleep in lives, and he forgot to count the next one. When he killed the cat to get them the other 8 lives. Anyway, I told him, I said, hey, I didn't get any credit. He said, well, you crossed out that paragraph. See, Bill was really pissed at me. Sorry, he was really angry.
That's okay.
Well, that's a good. I could use that one.
Bill was really pissed at me when I quit, because he thought I was quitting because I had a life with terminal cancer. If he'd used his head, he would have realized that after she died, I would have needed that job. You know, just as something to do. But I was ready to quit because Bill wasn't doing anything to push this magazine. And we were entering the new century, well, it was the late 80s. And I felt like a quarterback without nobody blocking my line. He knew we were not doing anything. I used to present to him monthly with ideas. Let's do a TV show. This was way before Saturday Night Live, and even way before
what about this?
Laughing.
Well, Mad TV's on that.
Yeah, I know. They had to wait until Bill died before Warner's could do it. He wouldn't let them, or something, or he threatens them or something. So, and then what do they do when they finally get it? And this is like 93, whatever after he died, 1994. They hire this rock and roll producer to be the producer of the Mad Show. You know, Warner's and the corporate thinking if he could do a good record company, Quincy Jones. He could be the producer of Mad. So what the hell happened? Nothing. The first early Mad shows were all imitations of Saturday Night Live, and bad. And I was embarrassed.
After a
And
while,
they never called me. They never consulted with me. You know, because Bill had his finger on that, and it cut me out because well, I had retired because I wasn't doing anything. And then people came and were doing documentaries. There was a documentary from a Canadian show, movie, whatever, and they asked me why I retired, and I told them. And Bill was really furious because he still had to answer somewhat to Steve Ross and the guys that owned Warner's, because he was owned by Warner's. So that was kind of interesting. And so, like for example, shows you how angry he was at me. TV decided to have the TV Horror Hall of Fame. It was going to be like the Academy Awards once a year. So the first show came on and they honored Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood and whatever. And the second show was being planned, and they decided that they would give DC Comics a space in the place in the Horror Hall of Fame for the comic books, which I had created for Bill. And nothing happens. I don't hear from him or anything I know about it. And then I'm watching the show. And he's at this dinner. Why the hell he didn't invite me? Christ, I was the guy that started.
Yeah, wrote the stories.
And wrote all and created the characters and everything. He gets up there and he accepts this thing and he thanks Lyle Stewart, who was his business manager and had talked him into appearing before the Comicon, which was a catastrophe.
oh yeah,
But this was, he felt, a reaffirmation of his ability to be a horror comic publisher and not get crucified.
now did you create the three characters?
Oh, yeah.
Crypt Keeper, Vault Keeper, and the Old Witch.
Everyone
This guy here.
Yeah.
This guy here.
My artwork is on the covers of all of them. I used to draw the Crypt Keeper. I turned the Vault Keeper over to Johnny Craig, and I turned the Old Witch over to Graham Ingles because I couldn't do all the art.
And Davis eventually did the
And
Crypt
then
Keeper.
I turned Crypto Keeper over. Bill said, I want you to write sci-fi for me. That's when we had the sci-fi. So I had to give up my artwork, except the covers. I stuck doing stories. And so I turned the Crypt Keeper over to Jack Davis.
I always liked your artwork. I mean, it's
Why did you like it?
I did. I mean,
thought it was kind of thick.
it's great. It's great comic art.
Well, you know, it has grown on
If it wasn't,
collector's art.
now, if your artwork wasn't good, do you think they would put it on? Remember that big hardcover that came out?
Oh,
DC
yeah.
Horror Comics of the 50s? They
Oh,
wouldn't have
wow.
put your cover on there. That was your cover.
That's right. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And you know, that's one. That particular cover is one of the covers that I always wanted to paint, but nobody permission me to do it. That's the one with the guy crawling up, trying to get the hell out of the vault.
Yeah, and the guy
and the corrupt is sitting up in the coffin.
Well, Marie Severin was colors, right?
Oh, she was colors. Oh, Marie did great coloring on all my covers. And you know, when I started to do the paintings, the commissions, God, I couldn't improve on them. You know, she did change a lot from the originals when she did the Russ Cochran reprints.
Oh yeah.
And I think some of those really lost the original. And when I was commissioned to do a cover that she had recolored from Cochran, I went back to the original.
Well, see,
And I thought that was better.
luckily I have a stack of the original ECs, and I've got all the reprints as well, so I can.
You can see the difference.
Yep. Listen, I don't want to keep you anymore.
All right, well, this has been a long interview. Thank you. And look at this crowds of people waiting to see you.
But I would like to get an email address from you, and I will check those DVDs.
Okay.
Because it seems like at least some of those shows we said originally written by Al Feldstein.
Originally published by William M.
Gaines
Gaines.
in the comic magazine title, but I'm pretty sure.
I never saw my name on any of them unless he started to feel obligated at the end. Maybe he felt guilty, I don't know, towards the end.
Now, do you check this email? Or somebody else?
Of course, you know.
Can I get your autograph?
Sure. Well, yeah. no fan, I'm going to give you a collector's item. You can take this to a convention like this and sell it for maybe
I wouldn't do that.
That's the true fan, is the one who wouldn't take it to a convention.
old business.
Oh, wow.
Wow, show that.
Get out of here.
Business card, don't try and get in touch with him.
No, wow. Now, when is this 50s or 60s?
The whole thing, from when I first came out of Triad, this printer.
Damn. Well, thank you very much.
I had to reprint them many times over the 29 years.
See that?
And when I retired, I had a box of them.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's Al Feldstein, everybody, from Old EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, Weird Science, Weird Fantasy, Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror, Two-Fisted Tales, Frontline Combat. Jesus.
Come to my website, alfeldstein.com. One word, alfeldstein.com. And see some really good fine art that I do now.
Thanks, Al.
What's your name?
John.
You too.